The legend of the Falken R34 GT-R doesn't begin with a race victory, a heroic overtake, or a dramatic championship battle. It begins with an aura, a presence, something that, even standing still in the pit lane of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, radiated a tension you could feel in your spine. The teal and blue livery wasn't paint, it was a declaration. A visual warning that this car was not here to participate. It was here to dominate a track built to break machinery. While other teams focused on strategy and consistency, Falken arrived with a different philosophy. Unleash the full potential of the RB26 and carve lap after lap into the green hell until the car itself became part of the asphalt. To drive the R34 here was to dance with a giant, to engineer it was to tame chaos. And to witness it at full anger was something unforgettable. This was the beginning of the Teal Ghost, a car that didn't simply run the ring. It haunted it. The Falken R34 wasn't just a GT-R with more boost. It was a purpose-built endurance machine, stripped, reinforced, and rebuilt into something far beyond its street origins. The RB26 was blueprinted and balanced to perfection, receiving forged internals that could survive hours at redline. Turbo sizing became an obsession. Large enough to breathe on the straights, small enough to spool through technical corners. Titanium piping, bespoke intercoolers, and unrestricted exhaust routing turned the engine bay into organized violence. Every part served a purpose, nothing was decorative. Even the wiring harness was re-engineered for reliability under the punishment of hours-long races. The twin turbos weren't chosen for power alone, but for repeatability, the ability to deliver the same shove lap after lap without fading. This was an engine built not for a dyno number, but for war. At first glance, the Falken R34 looks like a typical GT endurance car, big wing, functional vents, widened fenders. But its aero philosophy was brutally specific to the Nordschleife. The front splitter created massive low-speed grip, critical in sections like Hatzenbach where precision matters more than horsepower. The side skirts were sculpted to maintain underbody airflow stability, preventing the car from lifting during high-speed compressions. But the real secret was in the rear wing and diffuser combination. These pieces weren't meant to maximize downforce, they were tuned to maintain balance through dramatic elevation changes. The Nordschleife is not a normal racetrack, it's a landscape. The Falken R34 needed to handle blind crests, sudden dips, and multi-directional loads. The aero wasn't designed in a wind tunnel for a textbook curve. It was designed in battle. Most race cars run stiff. The Falken R34 ran intelligent. The suspension package became a dark art, a collaboration between Falken's tire engineers, GT-R specialists, and drivers who knew every bump on the Nordschleife by feel. Dampers were tuned to survive the brutal carousel without bottoming out. Spring rates balanced the knife edge between responsiveness and compliance, allowing the car to absorb punishment without destabilizing mid-corner. Anti-roll bars were adjusted for specific sectors of the ring, achieving a setup that wasn't universally fast, but fast exactly where it mattered. The result was a GT-R that didn't glide over the green hell, it attacked it with controlled aggression. Watching it take Flansgarden at speed was like seeing a heavyweight boxer throw a perfect combination, brutal but calculated. Where most teams chose Michelin or Dunlop, Falken had something the others didn't: total integration. The tires were not chosen for the car, they were engineered around it. Falken used the R34 as a rolling laboratory, pushing compound evolution every event. Grip windows, heat cycles, shoulder reinforcement, tread stiffness, all were tailored to the RB26's torque characteristics and the GT-R's AWD transfer logic. This gave the Falken R34 absurd mid-corner stability and braking consistency, especially in mixed conditions. While competitors struggled with temperature drop-offs or sudden grip loss, the Falken car kept a predictable baseline. Over a 24-hour race, predictability is deadlier than raw pace. And that's exactly how the Teal Ghost hunted its prey. The R34 chassis was strong from factory, but endurance racing demanded overkill. Reinforced welds lined the seams like scars. A cage built under FIA GT rules transformed the shell into a rigid exoskeleton. The floorpan received structural plates to withstand curb strikes. The rear subframe was machined for tighter tolerances, eliminating flex under heavy lateral loads. Even the firewall was strengthened to keep pedal feel stable deep into braking zones. These weren't modifications, they were survival measures. Nordschleife forces average cars into early graves. The Falken R34 was built to return home from the battlefield. Anyone who's been trackside when the Falken R34 flies past knows the sound. It's not a normal turbo 6. It's a metallic, ripping howl layered with turbo surge, gear whine, and the unmistakable rhythm of a perfectly balanced inline 6 fighting for breath. The anti-lag system crackled on downshifts, feeding the turbos enough heat to eliminate lag through tight sections. Oil cooling was upgraded to industrial-level capacity, preventing the RB from detonating itself after hours of full aggression. Even the throttle mapping was refined to match the AWD system, smooth enough to avoid wheel spin, sharp enough to launch the car out of corners like a slingshot. The sound wasn't just theatrics. It was the pulse of a machine tuned to perfection. Many teams underestimated how much work Falken put into the GT-R's ATTES system. Sensors were recalibrated, hydraulic control refined, and differential behavior tuned through countless test laps. The aim wasn't maximum traction, it was maximum stability under fatigue. The car had to behave the same on lap 2 and lap 142. Front torque engagement thresholds were altered to keep understeer in check. The rear differential was set aggressive to allow rotation on throttle without risking oversteer spikes. This AWD logic made the car devastating on mixed conditions sections like the Foxhole, where confidence matters more than bravery. A car as specialized as the Falken R34 required drivers who spoke its language. Not with words, with instincts. Each driver had intimate knowledge of the ring's micro-terrain. They knew which bumps you could ride and which would punish you. They adapted their style to the RB26 breathing rhythm, modulating throttle to keep the turbos alive. Their feedback shaped the car. They helped create a synergy where machine and human blurred. At speed, they weren't just driving, they were conducting an orchestra of mechanical fury. The ring demands respect, the Falken drivers demanded victory. The Falken R34 never approached the Nürburgring 24 hours as a race, it approached it as a siege. The goal wasn't to sprint, it was to break the track before the track broke the car. Night stints were executed with surgical precision, headlights slicing through darkness while the RB26 screamed across the forest. Pit crews worked like a military unit. Every tire change, every fuel load, every check was rehearsed. The Falken R34 became a symbol of endurance aggression. Fast enough to threaten leaders, reliable enough to keep pressure for hours. It didn't matter if it wasn't always the overall winner. Its presence was unforgettable, a teal phantom that refused to die. Few GT-R builds in history have captured the imagination of fans like the Falken R34. It wasn't just a race car. It became a cultural icon. Wallpapers, scale models, diecasts, video games, posters, vinyl wraps. The teal color scheme became instantly recognizable worldwide. It represented everything enthusiasts loved about the R34: brutality, elegance, and mechanical purity. Even among the endless modified GT-Rs of Japan, the Falken car stood apart. It symbolized a golden era where motorsport was raw, physical, and untamed. Today, just hearing the name, Falken R34, triggers nostalgia for a time when the ring wasn't conquered by hybrids and aero monsters, but by mechanical beasts driven by courage. The Falken R34 GT-R may have retired from competition, but its ghost still laps the Nordschleife in the memories of anyone who ever watched it scream through Tiergarten. It represents the perfect synthesis of engineering aggression and driver bravery. A car that turned fear into momentum. A machine that didn't just race the ring, it became part of it. Today, footage of the Falken R34 still circulates with millions of views, proving that legends don't fade. They echo, and in every teal blur, every RB26 howl, every onboard clip that sends shivers down your spine, the teal ghost returns. Still hunting, still roaring, still eternal. The Nürburgring Nordschleife isn't just a racetrack, it's a 20.8-kilometer test of mechanical purity and human resilience. And the Falken R34 GT-R became one of the very few machines that didn't simply manage the ring, it weaponized it. Each lap became a synchronized execution of memory and instinct. Drivers knew where the RB26 would breathe, where the chassis would compress, and where the AWD logic would snap the car out of danger. Onboard footage reveals micro-corrections that look insignificant, yet each is crucial to survival. The GT-R never glided, it clawed. The curbs around Metzgesfeld, the violent drop of Flansgarten, the uneasy balance at Wersiefen, all were opportunities for the Falken R34 to demonstrate its mechanical stability. Instead of fighting the Nordschleife's chaos, the car learned to ride it. That's why the world remembers it not as a competitor, but as a master. Behind the teal monster was a team operating with military precision. Falken didn't have the biggest budget or the most advanced telemetry tools, but what they had was strategy, ruthless, efficient, intelligent strategy. Tire engineers were embedded directly in the pit wall, analyzing compound behavior live, adjusting pressures by fractions to keep the GT-R inside its performance envelope. Mechanics rehearsed sub-1-minute service cycles until they became instinct. The team's philosophy was simple. Small gains multiplied over hundreds of minutes become victory. They approached every detail with borderline obsession: fuel consumption curves, brake wear mapping, driver fatigue schedules. In endurance racing, success isn't flash. It's consistency. And few teams were as consistently ruthless as Falken. Their understanding of how to maintain pressure on faster opponents is a major reason why the R34 became legendary far beyond its racing record. Most fans see highlight reels and assume the Falken R34's journey was glorious. It wasn't. The Nürburgring destroys engines, diffs, control arms, even sanity. The GT-R endured failures, heartbreaks, and nights where the car limped back to the pits on the edge of mechanical collapse. Oil temperatures climbing into danger zones. Turbos cooking themselves in slow traffic sections. Brake pedal going soft from hours of heat cycling. Every race demanded heroic intervention from mechanics who worked under pressure few people will ever understand. They rebuilt suspension corners in rainstorms, replaced sensors seconds before pit exit, even realigned the chassis after minor impacts. The R34 didn't become iconic because it was indestructible, it became iconic because it refused to die. Every scar, every patched hose, every reinforced bracket became part of its mythos. If daytime racing at the ring is war, nighttime racing is madness. Visibility collapses into a tunnel of headlights. Every reference point disappears, and this is where the Falken R34 became terrifyingly efficient. Its lighting system was custom-tuned for long-range clarity, giving drivers a confidence few cars could match. The RB26's sound echoed off the trees, becoming a metronome the drivers used to judge throttle input without looking at gauges. At night, the GT-R behaved differently, calmer, smoother, almost predatory. The car's teal reflections under pit lane lights became symbolic of endurance culture. Night stints were where the team made up most of their time, capitalizing on consistency while competitors faltered. Watching the Falken R34 chase down taillights in the dark was like watching a shark glide under an unsuspecting swimmer. Silent, controlled, inevitable. By modern standards, the Falken R34 is brutally analog. No traction control maps, no active aero, no predictive torque vectoring. Everything depended on driver instinct and mechanical engineering. And that's exactly why fans worship it. The GT-R relied on raw talent and tactile feedback, steering vibration, chassis flex, turbo lag rhythm, brake pedal feel. Drivers described the car as alive, as if it communicated through every bolt. Today's GT3 cars are faster, but they filter the experience. The Falken R34 delivered it unfiltered. Watching it dance through the Schwedencruise at full commitment feels more heroic than any modern lap record. It was a car that demanded respect, a car that rewarded bravery, and a car that punished even millimeter-level mistakes with violence. Instinct wasn't optional, it was the only tool that mattered.